All right, we're going live now. Hello, thank you for coming. This is the second episode of the Keep Up podcast, and this is Tom, and I'm joined by Larissa. And okay, so as we are starting, um, I see people are joining in, and if you could tell us where you are from, that would be fantastic. And we'll just wait for a couple more minutes for wait for people to come in. All right. So how are you doing today, Larissa?
I'm great. How are you?
Because I like your background. It's
Thank
very,
you.
very Colorado.
Got some mountains up there. So
That's where we are.
yeah, absolutely. So
We just love our mountains. That's why we go.
we do. I know.
All
Oh,
right. So
Boulder,
we are
Colorado.
from
Great.
Colorado, also from Boulder.
Yeah, great.
Okay. So if you are here, and please let us know where you are from. We'd like to get an idea where you are joining from. All right. Okay. So I like to maybe get started, and I would like to introduce uh, Larissa, and she is the host of this podcast, and she is she joined my lab as a PhD student, and I immediately gave her a very very difficult task of, hey Larissa, can you teach generative AI for a university? Because she had a lot of background in education and also in design, and that she at the time she got a degree in master of media technologies, and I thought that that's when ChatGPT just started to get a lot of attention, and that's what she did. And it's been a couple years, and she's continued to teach generative AI at my university, and she's pursuing a PhD in engineering education. And lately, she's just last week she started also launched this newsletter. Larissa, can you tell us more about this newsletter you just launched?
Sure. Thank you, Tom, for the introduction. Yeah, so the newsletter that I just launched is called Keep Up. And what it is a summary of all of the discussions that we talk about during our podcast episodes. And so I just recap everything that we go over, and um, I kind of give a play by play, but also in the sense of if you're running a race, how it feels when you start, and then the aches and pains and the training plans and the things that you're going through as you're completing your training to complete a race, and then finishing and your next steps. So I have it metaphorically set up as your AI race journey, and then I also have different tools that I link in there that you can reference, and then you can go ahead and experiment with those tools, and then take a look and see what you think about them. And also it offers words of encouragement, as well as you're not the only one who is starting this journey. We're all on this journey together, so we are working, collaborating, and supporting each other. And also within different running communities, there's a lot of different running groups, and we talk about how there's networking groups within the AI communities as well, and those have really taken off, and a lot of people within those groups have really supported me and helped me along my journey. And so how we can really rely on each other and support each other during this.
It sounds great. And
Mhm.
so if you listening and you're interested in signing up the newsletter, please follow the QR code that is on our screen. And so, and this podcast, we decided that each episode we're going to talk about three tools. And today, the focus is on AI research tools. So, Larissa, can you tell the audience how you selected the three tools to talk about? There are so many tools up there. It's overwhelming. I have to keep up. So, how do you pick the three to talk about in each episode?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first and foremost, I was introduced to Notebook LM from one of my colleagues, Bobby Hodgkinson, and he is a professor at CU, and he came in and spoke to our class about Notebook LM. And from there, learning from him, and then having this uh, basically I've made that into an assignment in my classroom. So I had the students use a research tool that's called Perplexity. If anyone is familiar with Perplexity, it's a search engine tool. And I had the students use Perplexity, which is free to a certain point, and then do deep research into that where they're citing all of these different sources. And I can get back to that in a second. And then with Notebook LM, I had them take that information, input it into Notebook LM, and then had them create a podcast out of the information that they put into it. With Notebook LM, it's really neat because you can actually upload at least 50 different sources into it with a free subscription. You can, I think, there's over 500,000 words and 100 megabytes that you can upload into Google LM. You can upload audio files, slides, uh, YouTube videos, anything that you are getting in your classes. So, for instance, if you're getting a lot of large information and you just feel completely overwhelmed, you can upload these different source materials into this notebook, and then you can ask and interact with it, ask it questions, and have it summarize, paraphrase different parts of the sources that you have there. And then, like I said, you can turn it into a podcast. You can even interact with the podcast, ask the podcast questions. You have to make sure that's obviously pertaining to the information that you're talking about. So I had my students do that, and it turned out to be very successful. And a lot of them are using this daily as a tool for them to study and basically summarize all the information, because like I said, it can be completely overwhelming when you are getting research papers to read, or you're getting a lot of information that professors are giving to you that you just don't even know where to begin and how to make all this information concise. So this has been a great tool for students. There's also in Notebook LM something called mind mapping, which interacts with ChatGPT, which is fantastic, and it helps with writing first drafts. And that is a really, really neat tool. So it breaks down each section within the documents that you are working with, and then it will start to break into different components and subheaders on how you can start to write a paper and the drafts. It's not giving you word for word, but it's just breaking it into chunks so it can give you a starting point so you don't feel so overwhelmed.
Okay. Yeah, sounds like you're very excited about Noble LM. It's the first
Yeah.
tool we that talk about today, and I have a couple more questions about that.
Sure.
And then we'll talk about you tell us the second tool and third tool. So I've seen that you talk about this tool because you actually taught them,
Mm-hmm.
not
Yes.
just because you read about them on the blog, we actually taught them. And then
Right.
probably there are some motivation behind you why you chose this tool. So I'm gonna ask you these questions.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, with this, we'll have some insight that the audience can get. Though this not just like it's not gonna be a sales demo. We don't do demo here. We just want to share some firsthand
Mm-hmm.
experiences teaching these tools and to share what we're hearing from the students. And
Mm-hmm.
so the first tool is Nobu LM. You already told us about that. And so did you uh how did you learn from Bobby? I saw Bobby is joining us today. Hi
Hi,
Bobby. Hi.
Bobby.
So we'll and is there any surprises that how your student used it in a way that you in did not anticipate?
There are I I wouldn't say anticipated, but I thought that they were very creative. And I also have a student that is a Spanish speaker, and so we talked about the different languages that Notebook LM has as well. I think over 35 languages, and so that is something that's really helpful. And can turn the information into podcasts using different languages, which I think is really, really helpful with English language learners as well. So that's something that's really great. And then the other thing is just, I think when I introduce tools to students, I don't know how much they're going to use them. It's just like, here's a tool. And then I didn't realize that majority of these students, which are in biomedical engineering, electrical engineering, physics, creative technology and design, are using using this tool, excuse me, on a daily basis. And so this is something that they are so thankful that we had Bobby come speak to our class, and that I gave the assignment for them to learn how to use this, interact with the podcast. And it's something that a lot of students will put on the podcast while they're driving to school, because some of them live further away, but that's a way that they can gain the information while they're walking around or driving to school or eating their lunch, and they're just listening to all this information and studying. And I think that that's really helpful. And as we talk about different types of learners, there's visual, there's audio, there's, people that learn in different forms. And so for people to listen to this, and then you can even look at the transcript as well and follow along visually, that's been a game changer as well. Mm-hmm.
It sounds like you're doing podcast very well. Why are we still doing this podcast? Should we just...
Great question. Great question. No, I think it's a great. I think this is a game changer for students. I wish I had this when I was in an undergrad program, and I still use it now as a student too, and with different research papers that I need to analyze and look through, and the different research that I need to look up. So it's absolutely helpful, and it's great.
And okay, so will you teach it this tool again? I guess you probably will, right?
Oh yeah, no brainer. Mm-hmm. They're only improving the tool more and more, and with the mind mapping and different, you can create different graphs, different visuals. There's a lot of different options that this tool can create for learners, and yes, there's a lot of different applications that can really help you within the tool.
So can you comment on the research part of this tool, since today's focus is on AI research tool, and I understand that you could produce podcasts as a product. Could you comment on what you observe as impact on students' research process?
Yeah, so when you're uploading different sources, so let's say you're uploading 10 different papers that you need to write a paper about or a topic about, with you being able to interact with the chatbot and ask it questions about the different research papers, and then have it summarize the different information that, like I said, you can have up to 50 sources. There's over 500,000 words that you could be dealing with. This is a lot of information, and to be able to have it summarize these different resources is really a time saver for a lot of people. And then also with that information, like I was stating, you can do the mind mapping, which will break it into different criteria. And then you can start to write a research paper in regards to the sources that you have. So it's able to cite the sources that it's pulling from, and then you're able to use those sources in your research paper and cite them specifically, and then also break it down into different criteria. So that is something that I think is really, really helpful for students, helpful for me, helpful for anyone that has to take on a long paper, whether you're working in industry or you're working within education. It's a good starting point, and it's only going to keep growing from there. So working within research, this is something that is helping a lot of people and helping summarize these different documents.
We could probably talk about Notebook LM forever, but I think given the time, we should switch gear to the second tool you're going to talk about. So what is the second research tool you taught? in your class?
Yeah, so the second research tool that I taught in my class was Perplexity. Obviously, there's so many different AI research tools out there that you can find and use, and they are very good. But I found Perplexity to be very successful in this. I also with Perplexity, it is one of the leading models. I think it's about 93% on the accuracy for just like simple QA benchmarks. And then it also is attaining a lot of high scores in the different industry benchmarks. It's combining web search, reasoning, coding, and then it's refining your analysis into like clear and comprehensive reports. So it can also across a range of like complex subjects. It can look up anything from finance to marketing, health, technology, and then it also has toggles, which is really great. So when you're going in to do the deep research, you can also look on the web. You can look within academic papers, or you can look within social discussions and opinions. So there's different toggles on the search bar that you can look up, which is really, really helpful. So if you're only wanting to find academic papers, then you can click on that toggle. And then once you have started to work within your deep research, or you've created your question, it can, I think the max right now is under 3 minutes for it to go through all the different sources and give you an answer to your question. And with those different sources, it numbers each source. So then with that, you can click on the numbers and see where it's grabbing the source from. And then you can even double check all of your information and make sure it's correct. Like every tool that you're using, whether it's within generative AI, you have to double check your work regardless. You can't just take everything for granted and be like, okay, they give me this, this, and this. So what I wanted the students to do was work with deep research. I wanted them to ask it a question as to what is generative AI, and then I wanted them to check their sources, whether they wanted to grab from the web or academic or socials. And then from there, I wanted them to create a document and then import that document into Notebook LM, where they were able to then get a summary of all the information that they got from these different sources. They also could, from the different sources, they're linked in Perplexity. And so when you go through and you're reading the summary, you can click on the links, and then you can take those documents as well, and you can put those into Notebook LM. So there's a lot of different ways that you can incorporate this information. And so that's how we created our podcast and a paper within Notebook LM through the deep research that we created in Perplexity. And Perplexity is a great tool. It's a great search engine. It's only getting better. I know there's a lot of research tools that are catching up and maybe surpassing it as of today. But right now, this is, I feel, one of the most accurate research tools that I found.
Is there any interesting work from your student that jumped out at you that impressed you? Can you talk about it?
Within
Or-
Perplexity?
Yeah, from your student, they did something interesting with it.
Yeah, I think with them, it was really interesting because a lot of people, most of my students were asking similar questions. And then they're like, I don't want to ask this question anymore. I want to talk about biomedical engineering. So they started to get into explain to me what biomedical engineering is, or the type of tools I should be learning. And it was interesting to see, when using deep research, how many different resources that Perplexity is going through. So it'll show you at the top when it's searching how many resources it's actually going through. Some were up to like 99 and some only had like 7. So it was really interesting depending on the different questions that the students were asking. But within generative AI, I would say there were some that were within the 20s, but some could be within the 80s, and it could just be the exact same question, which is really interesting. So how it's changing, each time, and finding different resources, and you're wondering, like, are they the same resources? And some of them were comparing and contrasting that they pulled some of the same resources to see that it was similar, and then also the contrast that there are very different resources that they pulled from. So I found that to be very interesting, to see that they were asking the same question and sometimes getting completely different answers.
Did you come across any questions that Perplexity didn't do too well? Your students encounter anything that they didn't do well?
I think for the most part it did pretty well, but then when they started to add more and more questions onto more complex questions within different calculations that they would be using in their engineering courses, and how they can get conclusions to this and what they would recommend. I would think that they were struggling with that. Perplexity was struggling with trying to get more and more resources as they kept adding more and more questions. So that was one thing, but otherwise, I was really surprised by how well it did.
Hmm.
Hmm. Have you used it, Tom?
No, I have not used it.
Yeah.
I, I asked my student to do research for me.
Yeah.
That's what
So
I'm doing right now.
yeah, exactly. So it's a great tool if you want to try it out. I highly recommend it. Like I said, and working within research, I think it's one of the most accurate tools right now out there. Like I said, everything's changing, so there could be a new tool tomorrow that could could beat this beyond what it is doing right now. So.
All right. So now we get to reveal tool number three. What is the third research tool you taught in your class that you
Yeah,
like?
so I know obviously everyone has probably used this, but the ChatGPT deep research. And I know I talked about ChatGPT in the last episode, but the deep research tool within ChatGPT is fantastic as well. And so I think being able to, once again, you can upload everything, you can compile a report, you can ask it to create a graph. They're based on a lot of this different research information. And so it's really, the sky's the limit with this as well. I do find that, like I said, Perplexity is a little bit more accurate than ChatGPT as of right now. But it's still growing. But the deep research component really does make a difference. And then it may take a while for you to get the answers, maybe a little bit longer, just depending on the type of question that you have. But I wanted students still to compare and contrast the differences between ChatGPT deep research and Perplexity's deep research as well, and which one they found to be more accurate. And then also, it does cite within ChatGPT as well within deep research, so you can take a look at the different sites that they are referencing. And so it's nice that they have that example for you as well, so you can go back and, like I said, double check to make sure that you can rely on these when you are writing papers, and this isn't something that's just completely made up. So there's actual sources that are reliable. So yeah, I would definitely recommend deep research as well. If you haven't taken a look at that, go ahead and do a deep dive into that. And that's very user friendly. There's a video on their homepage that you can take a look at, and you can watch the video and get more information on that. But like I said, they are still working out a few kinks in this, but otherwise, I think it's doing a great job with analyzing and
Mhm.
synthesizing hundreds of online sources, build comprehensive reports, and also at a level for research analysts and so forth. So this is a great tool.
So you have taught three different tools in your class, and the students seem to come from the diverse background. What is your approach to introducing the tool? You can't just like give them the tool, hey, try, and tell me what happened, right? So what is your approach in terms of provide the scaffolding or the kind of activity design? Can you share a little bit insight you learned from these teaching experiences?
Sure. I mean, what the lesson that I created was I wanted students to learn what generative AI was. And so we gave a background as to, um, what it is, but also I really need to understand, what do you know about it? What are you comprehending? What are you not comprehending? And so how can uh, this assignment help you in really understanding what it is? You have all these different technology words that students may not know, especially when you're just starting within generative AI and using these different applications. So when you come across these different words, you may have no idea what these are. And that's why you're able to interact with these different chatbots, ask what these different words are, especially within Notebook LM. Like, I do not understand this. Even within the podcast, when they're talking, you can interrupt the podcasters. You can ask them, can you please explain more about this? Can you talk to me about what this term means? And so when I started to create this lesson, I wanted them to gain a deeper knowledge as to what generative AI actually is and how it works, and the different vocabulary words that are associated with it. And with that, that's why we took a deeper dive and to deep research into Perplexity and ChatGPT, and then taking all those sources and moving that into Notebook LM. So I think from that standpoint, for them to not feel overwhelmed with all these different sources that are out there and everyone giving different answers as to what it is, being able to summarize it into one concise report with visuals and obviously audio, help them to gain a greater understanding as to what generative AI is and what it actually means.
Can you elaborate a little bit about a specific assignment, one example assignment you created for your students?
Yeah, so that was the assignment, was to basically search on Perplexity, search on ChatGPT, gain that information as to what generative AI was. Some of the students, like I said, they were like, I know what generative AI is, but I want to know what this is instead, and I want to know what this is instead. So I allowed them to get into questions that were pertaining to their education, whether it was in a different subject. But what they wanted to do was gain that deeper knowledge. And then with that deeper knowledge, they gained all these different research tools that they could use and then input into Notebook LM and give them a summary for that. So it was basically number one, prompt engineering. So how can you prompt into Perplexity, ChatGPT, or any other generative AI deep research models? How can you get the outcome that is desired? And so some of them were not getting an outcome that was desired, so they had to continue prompting it. And then once they started to look at the different resources that they had, then they were happy with that. But once again, you're not going to get exactly what you want on the first try. So you really have to practice your prompt engineering skills, study that. You can even ask these generative AI models how to prompt. And so I know a lot of people kind of find that mind-boggling, but I always say, if you don't know how to address this question, ask your AI how to create the question for you. So you're actually learning how to prompt engineer from an AI, which is really interesting. And then using that information, putting it back in, and then hopefully getting the outcome that they desired. So like I said, just reiterating, trying different prompts, building on the prompts that they have. And then with that information, they were able to get their solution and their outcome.
Mm-hmm. All right, so it's almost time. So I would like to end with an observation. It seems like in your approach, you found this most effective by exposing students to multiple AI research tools instead of just one tool and trust that tool exclusively. And
Right.
so, right. So, yeah, I enjoy having this conversation. I also learn a lot. I feel like I'm a student. I wish I could have time to be in your class. And that is one way to keep up that hopefully this podcast could be something variable that will follow this pattern. We're trying to break down three tools and about, with respect to a particular aspect of AI. And we have, so because Larissa has taught lots of tools, hopefully use this opportunity to share more of your insight and observation with the larger audience. And so just as a reminder before we end this, if you like to follow our podcast, and you definitely should uh, look at the follow the news, sign on the newsletter, and Larissa is going to provide a bit more extended version of this podcast in this newsletter form. And I looked at this later. I really liked it, and I think you will enjoy reading the newsletter as well. So we could all keep up. And final question: when are you going to do your marathon this year?
I have to find one. Hopefully this summer I'll find one. Maybe in August. So
Sounds good.
yeah.
Okay.
But thank you for holding me to that. I appreciate it, Tom. So now I can't
All
get
right.
out of
I'll do my 5K. Now you do your
it. Yeah,
marathon.
no, that's great. Any
Okay.
any type of running
Well,
is terrific. Yeah.
all right. Um,
Fantastic.
thank you for joining us. Until the next time. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you all.